The story begins in what seems to be an ordinary day in the city, but an unexpected event causes commotion. A businessman is driving along the street when, suddenly, he goes completely blind for no apparent reason, leading him to stop his car abruptly in the middle of the road. His abrupt stop creates a traffic jam, causing a stir among the local drivers. A group of people approach him to help, and one man volunteers to drive him home. However, after they arrive and the businessman gets out, the so-called helper steals the businessman's car. The businessman is left stranded and confused, but the thief returns moments later, pretending to be a different person offering to help. This time, the businessman is cautious and, learning from his earlier mistake, kicks the thief out once he is safely in his apartment. A few hours later, the businessman's wife returns home and is horrified to discover her husband's sudden blindness. Acting swiftly, she takes him to a specialist. Since it's an emergency, the doctor agrees to prioritize their case. However, despite running several tests, the doctor finds nothing wrong with the businessman's eyes. It seems the blindness has no physical cause, hinting at a neurological problem. The doctor, baffled by the strange and sudden blindness, recommends the businessman go to a hospital for further testing. As the couple leaves the clinic, the doctor continues with his appointments, including patients with various eye problems: a child, a woman wearing sunglasses, and a man with an eye patch. Meanwhile, the thief who had stolen the businessman's car is driving around town, trying to avoid the police. In a twist of fate, he too suddenly goes blind. Forced to stop his escape, he ends up at the police station asking for help. The police take him to his old home, but his ex-wife refuses to let him inside. As night falls, another character, the woman with sunglasses, goes to a hotel where she meets her client. Their meeting goes well until she too suddenly loses her sight. Panicking, she realizes her vision has gone white. The doctor, who examined the businessman earlier, enjoys a pleasant dinner with his wife, unaware that the following morning would bring disaster. When they wake up, the doctor himself has gone blind. Alarmed, he contacts the hospital to warn them of what seems to be an infectious outbreak, and their concern is validated when they learn that the child patient from the previous day is also now blind. As the cases of sudden blindness escalate across the city, the government takes its first steps to contain the mysterious epidemic. They shut down the doctor's office, and both the doctor and his wife are taken away to a quarantine facility. Unable to bear the thought of being separated from her husband, the doctor's wife lies, pretending she too is blind in order to stay by his side. The couple is placed in a decrepit, abandoned asylum that the authorities have repurposed as a quarantine facility. The place is desolate, devoid of other medical staff or support. Each ward has a phone, but it is only to be used for emergencies, and each ward must designate a representative to handle communications. Soon, more blind individuals are sent to the asylum, including the thief, the woman with sunglasses, the child, and the businessman. The doctor's wife, still pretending to be blind, uses her sight to help the group navigate their surroundings. By pretending to have memorized the layout when they first arrived, she becomes an essential guide for simple tasks like leading people to the bathroom. As the asylum fills up, tensions rise. On one of their first trips out of the room, the thief inappropriately touches the woman with sunglasses. She responds by kicking him with her high heel, causing a serious wound on his leg. The doctor and his wife bandage the wound as best as they can, using only a shirt since there's no first aid kit available. That night, the doctor's wife is unable to sleep, worried about the thief's infected leg and fearing she may lose her own sight. As more people arrive, the businessman reunites with his wife, and the child grows increasingly upset that his mother hasn't come for him yet. The doctor tries to get help for the thief's leg, but the guards outside the asylum refuse to cooperate. pointing their weapons and forcing the group to retreat. Later, the first box of food arrives, but the portions are meager and barely enough to feed everyone. The doctor's wife attempts to use the emergency phone to request more food and medical supplies, but her calls go unanswered. The situation inside the asylum continues to deteriorate as more blind people arrive, overwhelming the facility. Chaos slowly consumes the asylum as hygiene and order break down. With everyone blind, people stop caring about cleanliness, wandering the halls naked and relieving themselves wherever they please. The businessman tries to lift his wife's spirits by reminiscing about their younger days, but she struggles to hold on to such memories in the face of their current grim reality. The doctor's wife discovers that one of the new inmates, the man with the eye patch, has a radio. He had been secretly listening to the outside world, and the doctor's wife convinces him to share the news with the others. The man reveals that the blindness epidemic has spread beyond the city and is now affecting people overseas. Governments have failed to contain the spread, and society is collapsing. The city is in chaos, with car crashes, plane accidents, and widespread panic. The few people who still have sight are staying indoors, but even the military is starting to lose control. As more blind individuals are brought to the asylum, the guards become increasingly hostile. In one particularly horrifying moment, a soldier shoots a man simply for stepping out of line. The panic this gunshot triggers causes a stampede, with people pushing and shoving to escape the danger. No one comes to collect the body, and the doctor's wife, still pretending to be blind, requests a shovel to bury the dead. The soldiers cruelly toy with her, throwing the shovel into the yard and laughing as she struggles to find it. Tensions inside the asylum worsen as one of the wards begins hoarding food. The bartender from Ward 3 declares himself king and refuses to share the supplies, using a hidden handgun to enforce his rule. In response, the doctor's wife begins collecting valuables from the people in her ward to trade for food, keeping a pair of scissors hidden for protection. When the men in Ward 3 demand that women trade sexual favors for food, the doctor's wife and other women reluctantly volunteer, seeing no other way to survive. The horrors they endure culminate in the death of one of the women. The doctor's wife, driven to her breaking point, takes matters into her own hands. She kills the bartender with the hidden scissors and leads a revolt against Ward 3, freeing the food supplies. A fire breaks out in the ensuing chaos, killing many of the ward's men. As the survivors escape the burning asylum, they discover the guards have abandoned their posts. The doors are open, and they are finally free. The story concludes with the doctor, his wife, and a small group of survivors venturing into the city. They discover a post-apocalyptic landscape with people scavenging for food and animals feeding on the dead. Despite the devastation, there is a glimmer of hope. One morning, the businessman suddenly regains his sight, leading to celebrations among the group. As more people recover their vision, it becomes clear that the blindness epidemic is not permanent, and hope for the future begins to grow.